Switzerland.
A country painted on postcards and pressed into chocolate boxes. But beyond the trains, the watches, the Matterhorn, there is another Switzerland entirely. A Switzerland where cars cannot go, where villages cling to cliff sides like barnacles, where 72 waterfalls thunder into a single valley, and a medieval town makes cheese the same way it did 800 years ago. Most tourists see Zermatt, Interlaken, and Geneva. These 10 hidden gems, they never do. High above the Lauterbrunnen Valley, at the end of a road that doesn't exist, sits a village the modern world forgot to pave over. Gimmelwald, population roughly 130, elevation 1,367 meters, number of cars 0. You reach it by cable car, that's the only way. And when the gondola doors open, the first thing you notice is the silence. No engines, no horns, just cowbells echoing off granite walls and the distant rush of a waterfall somewhere below. The village is a cluster of weathered wooden chalets perched on a shelf carved into the mountainside. Flower boxes spill over every windowsill. Hay dries on old wooden racks. The Alps rise around you like a fortress. Rick Steves once called Gimmelwald his favorite place in Europe, and then begged people not to go there. The secret held. It's still quiet. Now travel south to the Italian-speaking canton of Ticino, where the Alps soften into Mediterranean light and palm trees line the shore of Lake Lugano. Morcote sits on that shore, a village of terraced arcades, narrow stairways, and a church that climbs toward the sky like a ladder. Santa Maria del Sasso. Built in the 13th century, rebuilt in the Renaissance, it offers a view across the lake that once moved a Swiss artist to call Morcote the most beautiful village in the country. The cemetery below the church is filled with stone angels and cypress trees. The arcades along the waterfront are shaded by centuries-old vaulted ceilings. You walk through them as if walking through a painting. Morcote won the title of Switzerland's most beautiful village, and still, most tourists drive right past it toward Lugano, never knowing what they missed. If the cheese comes to mind first, that's fair, but Gruyères is so much more than a dairy product. This is a medieval hilltop town in the canton of Fribourg, crowned by a 13th century castle that has withstood 8 centuries of European wars and weather. The single cobblestone street runs from the castle gates through the town center, lined with buildings that look exactly as they did in 1500. Inside the castle walls, you walk through rooms where counts and bailiffs held court. Tapestries hang from the walls. Suits of armor stand guard in the corridors. From the ramparts, you look out over rolling green hills dotted with grazing cows, the same cows whose milk becomes the cheese the world can't stop eating. Down in the village, the H.R. Geiger Museum sits inside an old chateau. Geiger designed the creature from Alien, and his biomechanical nightmares are displayed here, in a 400-year-old building surrounded by cheese shops and flower boxes. Only in Switzerland. Imagine a valley so deep and so narrow that the sun takes hours to clear the rim. Imagine 72 waterfalls, 72, cascading from cliffs on both sides, some free-falling for 1,000 feet before hitting rock. This is Lauterbrunnen. The name literally means many fountains. The most famous of them, Staubach Falls, drops 297 meters from an overhanging cliff face. In the right wind, the water turns to mist before it ever touches the ground. It's the waterfall J.R.R. Tolkien based Rivendell on. He hiked this valley in 1911. You can see why. But Staubach is just the one everyone photographs. Trummelbach Falls is hidden inside the mountain. 10 glacier-fed waterfalls thundering through a narrow gorge carved into the rock by 10,000 years of meltwater. You take an elevator inside the cliff to see them. Lauterbrunnen is on the tourist map, but only barely. Most visitors come for an afternoon photo and leave. The valley itself, the hiking trails, the high pastures, the silence between the falls, stays empty. Now move east into the rolling hills of Appenzell Innerrhoden. This is a region that still votes by open-air assembly in the town square. Women didn't get the vote here until 1990. Tradition runs deep. The town of Appenzell is a riot of color. Every building facade is painted. Not painted uniformly, but decorated. Frescoes, murals, floral patterns, biblical scenes, family crests. The effect is like walking through a storybook illustrated by someone with an unlimited palette. The streets are car-free. The air smells of cheese and chocolate and sometimes, faintly, of the herbal liqueur Appenzeller Alpenbitter, made from a secret recipe guarded by only 2 people in the world. In the surrounding hills, farmers still practice transhumance, moving cattle to high pastures in summer, bringing them down in autumn. The ceremonial cattle drives are a spectacle of flower crowns, embroidered leather, and bells that can weigh up to 10 kilograms. Some villages are preserved by neglect. Bergün was preserved by law. This Alpine village in the canton of Graubünden sits at 1,373 meters, surrounded by pine forests and jagged peaks. Its Engadine-style houses, thick stone walls, deep-set windows, elaborate sgraffito decorations scratched into the plaster, are so perfectly intact that the entire village was placed under UNESCO protection. Nothing can be changed. Every facade, every window frame, every painted detail is frozen in time, as if the 18th century simply decided to stay. The railway line that reaches Bergün is itself a masterpiece. The Albula line climbs 416 meters in just 6 kilometers, using spiraling tunnels and soaring viaducts to conquer terrain that should be impossible for a train. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site too. 2 UNESCO designations, 1 tiny village, and you've probably never heard its name. In the Bregaglia Valley near the Italian border, a sign points up a narrow road toward a place the locals call the Gateway to Paradise. Soglio sits at 1,090 meters on a sun-drenched terrace overlooking the entire valley. The mountains across the way, the Bondasca group, rise so abruptly and so dramatically that the view feels almost violent. Granite spires tearing into the sky, glaciers clinging to their flanks. The village itself is quiet in a way that feels sacred. Stone houses with red geraniums in every window, a chestnut forest that has stood for centuries. The Palazzo Salis, a 17th century manor house with a garden that seems to spill directly into the valley below. The painter Giovanni Segantini spent years here. He called it the threshold of paradise. And the view from the churchyard, looking out over forests and peaks to the distant Italian plains, is exactly the same view he painted in 1894. Hidden in a deep bend of the Doubs River, near the French border, Saint-Ursanne is a medieval town that looks like it was built for a film set, except nothing here was built for show. Founded in the 7th century around the hermitage of Saint-Ursanne, the town grew slowly over 1,000 years. The 12th century collegiate church dominates the main square. The cloister arches frame light in perfectly measured geometries. The old bridge, built in 1728, still carries foot traffic across the Doubs. 3 medieval gates guard the town's entrances. Once through them, you're in a labyrinth of cobbled lanes and half-timbered houses, some dating to the 14th century. There is no urgency here. The Doubs flows slowly. The cafes open when they open. The clock in the church tower has been keeping time since before clocks were accurate, and no one seems to care. Deep in the Val d'Aran, in the French-speaking canton of Valais, is a village of wood and stone that has resisted every modern impulse for 500 years. Evolène sits at 1,371 meters, ringed by peaks that top 3,500 meters. The houses here are built in the traditional Val d'Aran style: dark, weathered wood, piled stone foundations, roofs steep enough to shed the heaviest snow. Some of these buildings have sheltered families since the 16th century. The Haran's breed of cattle is famous for its fighting instinct. Every spring the cows, the queens they call them, lock horns in a ritual that determines herd hierarchy. The winner leads the procession to the high pastures. It's a tradition that predates written records. In winter, the village is accessible only by a single winding road. The mountains close in. The silence is absolute. Evolène doesn't advertise. It doesn't need to. We end where we began, high above the Lauterbrunnen Valley, but on the opposite side. Isenfluh is harder to reach than Gimmelwald. A narrow road, barely wide enough for a single car, switchbacks up the cliff face. At the top, a hamlet of maybe 40 residents, tucked onto a ledge with a view across the entire valley. There is no cable car from the valley floor, no train station, no hotel. There is a single restaurant that opens when the owner feels like it, and a panorama that stretches from the Eiger to the Schilthorn. Most tourists in the Lauterbrunnen Valley look up and see nothing on the cliffs above them. They don't know Isenfluh exists. That's exactly how Isenfluh likes it. 10 villages, 10 worlds hidden inside a country smaller than the state of Maine. Switzerland keeps its secrets well, but now you know where to find them. If you made it this far, there's a world of hidden places waiting. Subscribe and we'll find them together. Until next time.